coming back. So, you know, I did my test again, and I think basically where I'm at with it is the bottom one's got really good pressure. Number 2 cylinder. You know, is it a head gasket? I didn't hear anything leaking. I didn't hear anything coming out of the P-hole. It was coming back through the carburetors, which means reed valve or the piston rings themselves. So if that's the case, that's almost a complete teardown. So it would be a rebuild, sadly, because you almost have to take everything down, you know, take off the intake, get to the reed valves, rehone it. Yeah, it's one of those. We can fire it up, see what happens. It's the next morning, and so I kind of tore into this after I did my leak down test, and I could hear air coming out of the top carburetor, which leads me to believe it's a valve issue. So took the carburetors off. In order to do that, you got to take the starter out, got to disconnect your fuel line. There's a rubber plate that goes over here for what I think is part of back pressure exhaust, I guess. I don't know. Big old mud daubers in here. You got to take this bolt out here for the linkage, and then over here to get the carburetor, to get this out. You don't have to do that for the carburetor, but you got to take the choke solenoid that's laying over there off, and then here's the carburetors, right? So you got to take them off. I took the plate off, and then I just so I could get to the bolts in the back. You got this linkage that you don't want to mess up, and it's not really, it's not great. So anyway, I'm gonna mess with that a little bit to see if I can get that to work better. But yeah, I put the plate back on. You know, I take the wiring out of its cradle. There's a cotter pin that this connects to. There's a pin with a little locking tab and cotter pin right there. You got to take that off, and then I'm kind of at the point where I want to take this off, and basically I'm just gonna hit this with my mallet and a small piece of wood and see if I can knock it loose. Hopefully that will work. Alright, to get that stud out of there, to get this block off, you gotta do the double bolt kind of deal. So the stud, it's just a stud, so this won't come off without this off. So I just put 2 nuts on there, just back it out. Got the reed valves out, and I kind of, you know, here's the thing, like if you look up through the light, see that's the bottom one, and you don't see any light through that one. This one, man, look at it, you can just see it. And so I even turned these around, and so this is actually worse. The other side was pretty bad, but not quite as bad. But still, any little crack and any back pressure is really going to push it out. So needs a new set of reed valves on the top there, you know. So let's see if I can find some reed valves for it, and hopefully that'll fix him up. Cylinder looks pretty good. I kind of turned it around and stuff, and just to see if, anyway, yeah, it seems to be pretty decent. So I didn't see any scarring as much as I could see in there. Kind of need a better light, but alright, I'm not sure where I left off. So what I discovered was reed block. One of the reeds were I mean, you could see light through them. I swapped them, so I took the good reeds that were on the bottom and put them on top, and then I put it back together. And anyway, the readings weren't, they were improved, but we still got a dead cylinder, real low compression. I sprayed some stuff up in here, some blaster, just to see if possibly maybe we had a stuck ring. I did my leak down test again, and I mean, it still has a leak. Could be a gasket, not sure. But before I pull the motor off, I want to just make sure that I got you know, that I got spark. So I hooked up my remote start, and I just want to look for, you know, blue spark, good spark. And I also have my timing light hooked up, so when I'm done checking both of them, then I can maybe put my timing light on it and see where it looks like in time. Well, I can see it from here. I just want to make sure it's, you know, it's close to there. And I got this piece of wood just kind of so I get a good test. Yeah, that's got good spark. Alright, real good spark. It's a good tool. Well, get it over here. Oh yeah, we got good spark. Probably not as good as the top cylinder. It's definitely good spark. Well, it's kind of hard to read the numbers, but it's sort of what I suspected. Right around 32 to 35 degrees is where it's firing, so that's good. And I got a good light, so the trigger part of it is working good. And the switch box is working good. Top cylinder. So what do? Do we pull the head? Yeah, probably gonna have to pull the head. And so maybe the next thing to do is to take the lower unit off. I can take a look at that and pressure test it. That's what I'm going to do next. Is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take the prop off, take the lower unit off, drop it, then see if I can get, you know, what I'll have to do is once I got that dropped, I think the clutch is independent of the power head and removing the power head. So there's 4 bolts holding it on down below, and I'll have to take, you know, a bunch of stuff off. I'll take this off, lay it to the side, You know, gonna have to take, you know, the tilt switches out, and so you got the switch and you got the relay. Some of the wiring will have to come off. Starter's gonna have to come off. Gonna have to take the carburetors back off. Yeah, so a lot of that will have to come off. And then probably the mid cowl to see how this is tied to here. It's gonna have to come off. So that's a lot of stuff that's got to come off. So anyway, let me get to that, and I'll get it off and get it done. And anyway, we'll see you in a bit. Alright, I got the lower unit off, and hopefully you can see this. This is the housing. Somebody used sealant, so now some of the ports were blocked. So this is what you don't do. You don't use sealant. So I'm going to have to clean all that off and get it back where it should be. Like, there's a port right there, and I mean, it's totally blocked. Look, just pull that all off. So there's a port here where there's a guide, actually. So that's what you don't do. Alright, I got the power head removed. It's pretty simple. Should be able to figure it out. There's 8 bolts under here, and it just comes right up. And there's some bolts here. Don't get deceived by that, because you can't even get to them. Don't even mess with them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to tighten it up because one of them I loosened a little bit. So you got 3 bolts there that you just want to check. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this all up for him. Pull this out of the way. And I want to show you that. So check this out. Big old mud daubers down there, you know, lots of crud, all that. So spray that down real good with some kind of degreaser, or just something to just take. And so there's no wiring there now. I can just take some, I don't know, I'll take like some Dawn dishwashing detergent and just spray it straight on there, and then just hose it down. It'll clean up real good. But yeah, so anyway, I got that done. Now I can take it off the stand, take it inside, pop the cylinder off of that end. I'll look at the cylinder, see what it looks like, and then, you know, hopefully I won't have to take the flywheel. You know, probably if I re-ring it and hone it, I'll have to take the intake off, which means I'll have to take the flywheel off. So all right, so sorry for the lighting here. Wanted to I got the power head off, and got the, you know, the water pump area off. And one thing I wanted to show was right here. It's hard to see. Probably put it like, let me just show you. There's little pieces of rubber hose. At first I thought it was carbon, but it's like rubber hose. So I'm not sure what happened there. You can see it kind of in here in some places, but it was kind of down on the bottom. So, you know, this is where your water comes out. Right here. And so if we look at this, just kind of line things up, right? So we know that outlet is right here. So you can see going to be something I would have to look and see how this water comes, but it looks like it just comes up here and goes out that hole. So the pressure somehow is really going to develop out of this hole right here. And of course it goes around the, you can't really see this. So get this where I can see it. So this is where the water's coming out. So these are exhaust ports, and then this is going to be a water cavity, right? And then if you look, like there's a hole that's down, you can't see it, and I don't have a light. So top cylinder looks pretty good. I mean, it's carboned up, probably a lot of fuel. You know, the bottom one, if I rotate it down, it's about the same, right? So the only way to really know how good this is the cool thing, the way they did this. So the old style Mercury's, we've got an inspection plate, and right away there it is. So this one's gonna need a new piston. You can see it. Can you see it? Hopefully you can see it. So I'll have to let this guy know. This one's gonna need a new piston. So even though something caught, I guess, and caused it to do that. See that? See right in there? This one's gonna need a new top piston. That's unfortunate because, man, it's in great shape. I mean, otherwise, as far as the, you know, and the bottom piston, you know, like I said, it's pretty good shape. You know, so now if I'm doing this, man, I'll probably replace the piston and both the rings, because the bottom one compression, you can bring it up a little, you know, hone the cylinders. Man, if that wasn't like that, that would have been awesome. Some reason it caught, man, and it just blew that out of there. So, you know what? It's gonna be a total rebuild. Hey, here's a tip for you. When you're taking the flywheel off, like this is not like the Mercury's where it's got the threads and you put that puller on. This one, you know, it's just got this nut, right? So instead of taking the nut all the way off, spin it up to about right here. Then that thing will just go flying off. And then to get this one off, I just use my 3-jaw puller. Just a typical 3-jaw puller. You know, that thing will pop right off of there. And it won't go flying. I've watched a few other videos, you know, where I seen guys doing that, where they wouldn't take the nut off, and then the thing would go bouncing. I mean, it's kind of dangerous, you know. I mean, maybe not that dangerous, but it's enough that, like, it doesn't make sense, man. So yeah, you just take this nut off, you know, well, it'll pop up, and then this thing is just gonna come up. Boom. And then there's your flywheel. And it's keyed. It's got this little key in there. So now that gets me to, gets me into here, and I'm going to take this trigger off, which, you know, is it's a points trigger. So basically it's got a coil, and anyway, the magnets fly around that coil. See the magnets? This is your trigger. So, and it's just held in like 4 bolts. And this bolt is just the thing to, you know, just to hold the wiring in place. And then that should all just come right up. And then that gets me access then to get to the intake manifold so I can take it off. I have to take this off. This is your, you know, your adjustment. There's your throttle linkage. But anyway, that's, just wanted to show that because, man, I've seen it a lot. It's like, yeah, another thing that I noticed on this engine, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let me turn it a little bit. There's a couple places where there's screws, and it's slotted all the way through for a flathead, but it's also slotted for a, you know, for a Phillips. So probably want to, because they're torqued, you want to start with like a flathead. And if you got to, just hit it with a rubber mallet. That'll break the seal. But we don't want to change any of this stuff because that's where they originally had stuff set. And it'll be close, you know, without having to go back and really reset the timing because, you know, it's pretty much dead on. So, yeah, I've seen a bunch of people doing their flywheels that way. And it's like, man, that's so unnecessary, man. Yeah, see, that just comes up like so. Alright, so I'm moving on. You know, I know that this thing has got a bad piston. I want to get that off so that I can get to the intake manifold. Get it off so I can get the cylinders out. So
I